Born in India, Lord Meghnad Desai is a member of the British House of Lords and an emeritus professor of economics at the London School of Economics, where he taught from 1965 to 2003. His book Marx's Revenge, The Resurgence of Capitalism and the Death of Statist Socialism, stated that globalization would tend towards the revival of socialism. His other books include Rethinking Islamism, The Ideology of the New Terror, The Root to All Evil, The Political Economy of Ezra Pound, and The Rediscovery of India. We have him with us today in conversation with senior author and journalist Kaveri Bamzai and chief reporter of edX, Daniel Timaya.
Lord Desai, the book takes us from your life in Baroda as a young boy to a newly independent Mumbai, lively Mumbai. Then it takes us to Pennsylvania, it takes us to Berkeley, it takes us to London in 1965, at the height of every movement, every youth movement you could think of. And it also brings us back to the Delhi of the 70s and the Delhi of the left public intellectuals. So there's so much to talk about, but I'd like to go straight to the Delhi intellectual. And I found that you have a very interesting way of describing him or her, especially the Delhi left intellectual. And you say that a relationship with power is very complicated. It's less ruled by rights and liberties and more to do with power. Talk a bit about that, Lord Desai. I found it quite fascinating because it continues to be so, perhaps.
You know what was my experience, since I left India at 21,
Yeah.
my experience as an adult started about. And if you were on the left, generally speaking, if you were agitating, you were always away from power.
Right.
Power was the other, and you were trying to do something. I wasn't necessarily trying to come to power because I wasn't in that kind of politics. But so when I got to Delhi, several times, first in 65 and then onwards, it was always very puzzling that in Delhi, almost everybody thought they could put you in touch with the prime minister or
Right.
somebody high. And when I spent 1 year there in 71, everybody was left-wing in Delhi School of Economics.
Yeah.
And then they all thought, they had access. As I described, someone said, "Oh, Ashok Mitra has sold out his Naxalite principles." Now, Ashok Mitra was chief economic advisor to the government of India. Now, how a chief economic advisor could have Naxalite principles, truly or not? And be up there, it was not a Marxist government; it was a Congress government, for God's sake, But people had this delusion that they had to be really extreme left wing. And whenever discussion took place of Indian economic problems, they always used Soviet Russian examples. Kulaks.
Right.
Kulaks. Farmers were not farmers, farmers were kulaks.
Hmm.
And there was a Stolypin solution and this solution and that solution. Bukharin. And, it was like they were all pretending to somebody else.
Hmm.
Now in America, where my first experience, being left wing is all about race questions, which was in your neighborhood,
Right.
poverty. And it was basically the idea that the radical was the underclass trying to help fellow underclass to go forward.
Right.
And it's going to be a long struggle. And so I was very puzzled that, especially in universities, in Delhi School of Economics, not so much Bombay where I'd studied, Delhi, everybody thought they were in touch with power. I was twice asked,
Right.
who would I like to be in the cabinet? And I thought, I don't know. I don't know. Why are you asking me?
And I found that fascinating because do you ascribe the sort of backlash that led in a way to the BJP coming to power especially in this avatar in 2014, which you predicted quite accurately, which is another of your great characteristics. Do you feel that a lot of that had to do with the selling out in a way of the left liberal?
Yeah, in a sense, in one of the problems was about the left, that they really thought about India in foreign terms, or so inherited foreign concepts. There has not been a single Indian Marxist theorist whom anybody reads, except Kosambi, who was a historian.
Right.
I mean, India doesn't have a Ho Chi Minh, India doesn't have Mao Zedong. They have all people. And the fact that people did not take caste seriously, or religion seriously, no, not just Hinduism, they did not take religion seriously.
Right.
In a society which was deeply religious.
Right.
And defines people's identity. And even Congress, all the Congress had a very religious sort of understrata. Nehru more or less sidelined anybody who, I mean, there's a lovely thing about Rajendra Prasad wanting to go to the Somnath restoration.
Right.
And so Gopal says he was a medievalist. We didn't know where he had got his medievalist tendencies. But come on, he was going to, restoration of an old temple would be a glorious thing in any country. It doesn't matter if he's secular or not.
Right.
But this was alienation, complete alienation. And so there was an empty space where the BJP moved in.
Absolutely. Lord Desai, for you as an intellectual in India, in the West, you're clearly identified as a left liberal, you were the Labour Party as well. But in India, they find it very difficult to pin you down, because you don't take the usual positions expected of. Yeah.
In India, you have to come in a complete package.
Right.
You're either one thing or you're another. You're not capable of independent thought.
Right.
It's not thought to be capable of independent thought. So if you are left liberal, you have to hate Modi.
Right.
And you have to love Rahul Gandhi. This is even more difficult. But I think people don't understand that this left liberalism, so-called, is very hollow, because when it was in power, it did not actually do very liberal things.
Right.
I could go on, but we have not that much time.
Right.
So, but if I am me and I take the situation, political situation, and I arrive at a certain conclusion quite logically, after thinking, I don't have to be in this kind of Manichaeanism, you're either with us, and if you're with us, then you must criticize everything the other side does. I remember once I won't name her, but we had JNU economists came to Delhi. I came to London and gave a paper on poverty, and I was discussing, and I said, what a lovely paper it was, and I talked to her. She said like to me, why did you say it was a good paper? I said, because it was a good paper. I don't believe that just because you are GNU and I'm not GNU, everything you do is bad. Living in the West is a very different culture. You can admire your opponent. You can see the good things in people you don't agree with. You might even adopt some of their ideas.
Right.
There's no caste distinction. Then you don't get shoot by
right.
by going and eating in their place.
Right.
So I just laugh at it. I just stop worrying about it.
Right.
If they think I'm not left liberal, they don't think I'm left liberal. Who cares? That is no. So I hope that more people would be like me.
Right.
Just
But
think for yourself.
the intellectual tradition in India has somewhat sadly lacked a proper conservative right-wing thought. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. There is no what we call liberal thought in India. I think it's Jyoti Rao or somebody has written a very, very interesting book about it. See, because in a sense, there is no individualism. You always belong to something, your jati. You're
Right.
defined by your jati, and especially after Mandal. Your jati is now stuck because it is the value. It's the one thing of fact that you're downtrodden is so valuable. You don't want to be not downtrodden.
Exactly.
Everybody wants to be downtrodden, and
Right.
so individualism, as we have in the West, is not known. And again, there's always patronage. You're always part of some family, and the attitude towards elders. People come and touch my feet. I said, please don't touch my feet. My father never let anyone touch his feet. He was very modern. He said, none of that nonsense. And I feel all that part of the culture, I just turn away from. And so I think individualism is absent, and so is genuine love of enterprise and money. As I was saying before, maybe in another interview, in India, no political party from RSS to CPM likes private business. They think all businessmen cheat, all profits come from cheating or monopoly power or something like that. And therefore, the first thing to do is to stop business from prospering. First thing. And sentimental thing like if you say, I'm a Kisan, yes, you can have your debt forgiveness. But Kisan is a businessman.
Exactly.
The private sector, the largest private sector is agriculture. But
And
no,
the least taxed in India in a way.
Exactly, least taxed in India. And so a lot of famous people have farms.
Right.
So, I think these are deeply rooted cultural attitudes. And because modernity came with the foreigners, it has never taken roots.
Right.
It has never taken a deep root because we are very ambivalent about foreigners. We hate them and we are afraid of them.
Right.
And we think we are superior to them.
Right.
Of course, we were there 3,000 years ago and they were on the trees or something like that. But we won't sign a foreign trade treaty with them because they may come and flood our markets. We have no defense. So we have to be Atmanirbhar. It's a very peculiar. I mean, I'm always puzzled by the fact that the ambition, RSS ambition is to be Jagat Guru.
Exactly.
Not the richest.
Right.
Not say we want a country in which there is no poverty. We want a country in which everybody has a good life, a healthy life. No, we want to be Jagat Guru. So who's going to listen to you? You were not a single first-rate university in the country. And where is the need for the world? Maybe yoga, but apart from yoga, where is the need for the world to come to India?
Right.
But for a country to have that as its ambition.
Yeah. That's quite fascinating. And Lord Desai, that is despite the fact that we are led by a prime minister who's Gujarati, and far be it from me to indulge in stereotypes, but the Gujaratis are perhaps the most entrepreneurial of the regions that we have in India. Why does this not take deeper root? And the BJP is a party, it was traditionally a party of traders and shopkeepers, or that's how it was characterized. And yet it never really held wealth as a priority.
Now, let me say two things. First of all, I have this very unorthodox belief that India is a collection of nations. It is not a single nation. It's a civilization like Europe. And Gujarat has been a developed capitalist country for ages. Very exceptional. Because Brahmins were never dominant in Gujarat.
Right.
The Vaishnavite Baniyama was.
Right.
Or the Patidar.
Or the Patidar.
And so the culture of Gujarat is very economically oriented.
Right.
And the money maker is respected in Gujarat, which is partly why I feel very strange in that at the all India level. Nehru said to J.R.D. Tata, Jay, don't talk to me about profit. It's a dirty word. And what did he know about business, for God's sake? He had not worked for a day in his life. Until he became prime minister, he had lived off his father's money. Anyway, so Modi was in that culture. But RSS is not in that culture. The
Right.
idea that BJP is a traders party is an insult invented by the left.
Right.
It is absolutely not true.
Right.
So I think, I also think, for example, and this is my own private belief, that Modi also has been now captured by those non-Gujarati forces of the RSS, saying, आपको 5 साल दिए, आपने विकास कर दिया, ठीक है, अब हमारा काम करो सांस्कृतिक. The national question has to be solved. 370, CAA, that is priority. Sabka Vikas is not priority. So I think, he is still the only leader in India who can get anything done. But he has to get back his focus on the economy. It's diverted by COVID, it's diverted by the China-India border war. But I think if he doesn't do it, nobody else will do it.
Right.
Arun Jaitley isn't there anymore.
Yeah. Right.
You see, Punjabis and the Gujaratis, and to some extent the Tamils, have commercial civilization.
Right. Whereas the rest don't. Yeah.
The rest don't, exactly.
It's interesting, Lord Desai, you mentioned that, we've had a lack of Marxist theorists when it comes to the country. You, of course, have had a love affair studying Marx and Marxist theories for what is it now, 6 decades? Could you tell us a little bit about where that began? Because you did, in most of your books, you talk about how your brush with student politics and studying Marx started very early in life. Could you tell us a little bit about how that came about and what place it holds in your long due autobiography?
Well, the thing is, when I was growing up, at least when we got to Bombay, and I was my teen years in Bombay, Marx was everywhere. At least if not Marx, at least communists were everywhere. Culturally, very, very powerful. In cinema, in theater, people like Kosambi. I was very precocious, so I read Kosambi early on, and most people hadn't actually read Marx. The entire Communist Party had not read Marx, but that is another story. It's when I went to America, paradoxically, that I discovered Marx in a very different way. Had I gone to Oxford or Cambridge, I'd have had the imperialism Marx, Indian imperialism, India's underdeveloped because of imperialism, this, that. In the context of Leninist theory, I would say. In America, radicalism came from a critique of the society itself. Not of a foreigner, not of anything else, but the fact that a society itself had class contradictions. Why, of course, racial contradictions as well. So my Marxism first started by understanding the Vietnam War, the black-white differentials, and all that sort of stuff. So when I went to England, I did much more academic study, but the perspective was never, let's say, the JNU perspective, which is a good perspective. It's a very good university. There are some good professors. So for me, it was never that imperialist caused my underdevelopment. I caused my underdevelopment, and I have to find out how I did it, or my country did. And also, by reading extensively Marx himself, I discovered that Marx is not Lenin. Lenin is very, very different. And I construct myself to Marx. So my Marxism comes from a different educational tradition. Nobody actually taught me Marx. I read it myself. But and I was not trapped into the Indian communist culture, which is very, very superficial and very badly read. They've hardly read anything. As I was saying, no Indian Communist Party person has ever written a book which is read abroad as a contribution to Marxism. Gopalan or Nambudripad or Dange, nothing. There's nothing there. So I think, in a sense, for example, Marx takes a much more positive view of capitalism and its potential than people now think. I mean, after all, the whole controversy with the fact that Marx thought British imperialism was doing progressive things in India by
Exactly.
destroying the old mode of production.
Right.
That's anathema to Indian Marxists. How could Marx praise imperialism? But for Marx, didn't think like that. Marx thought capitalism was a progressive force and feudalism was a backward force. So if you destroy feudalism, it's a good thing.
Mm.
Now you see, this kind of idea is totally alien in the Indian Marxist tradition because they've never read Marx properly. So they're always looking around for the negative. Capitalism has to be negative if you're a Marxist.
Yeah.
And I wrote a book called Marx's Revenge. I wrote a book called
and when you wrote that book, you argued about capitalism to such a great extent that a lot of the communists took offense.
Capitalism will not go away until it is exhausted. It is not yet exhausted. Look at Amazon. Look at this. The fact that you and I are talking at a distance is a result of capitalist innovations. You know, and the four largest firms in the world today are all in data. They're not in manufacturing. That is capitalist innovation. And the dynamics of that is where, in my book, Marx's Revenge, about the resurgence of capitalism, is Marx's revenge on Lenin. So Lenin misled people, and all communist parties have been ever since misled in rejecting capitalism. India suffered from that because the Nehruvians were never friendly with capitalism. They thought the state was always better. And I think after 70 plus years, we ought to accept that hypothesis is false. The state is actually not very good at all.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Lord Desai, may I just ask you, since we were talking about concepts, one of the concepts that you helped develop globally was the Human Development Index as a way to measure a nation's success, a nation's progress. I was wondering, do you think it's time to revisit that?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, I did it for about 12, 13 years. Then we always had a brainstorming meeting to begin with. We were having a brainstorming meeting, and I suddenly realized that I was too old for this because they were talking about things we had talked about a dozen years ago. And I said, I can't say, but we've done all that because obviously we have failed. Let me get out of here and let the new generation do what they want to do. No, I think it's a very simple example is this. If I come from London to Delhi, my Human Development Index goes down, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So it is not a personal characteristic. It's a group characteristic.
Right.
While it is very useful for government policy and so on, it is not a measure of individual achievement. And I remember writing a background paper, God knows, 25 years ago, longer, which is the way in there, saying, can we have a microeconomic human development index measure so we can do household by household? What is a household's human development index? Now, for example, in India, what would be the human development index of different jatis? Say in Bihar or in Punjab or in Tamil Nadu, or individuals within so we need a much more richer. I mean, you can do the background work, and some people in India also they have done background work, but we need to get down to individual welfare because group welfare is all right, but every group has inequality in it, and so you miss out the real thing that you have to go search for. Who is missing out from economic progress, and how can we actually get everybody up as equal as possible? Because poverty reduction is poverty elimination is one thing, But ultimately, we have to tackle inequality as well, social and gender inequality, for example. In India, for example, has the lowest female participation rate in the labor force. In
And it's
Asia,
going down.
in Asia, exact Asia. Now that means that we have 500 million people in the active labor force. It could be 750 if women, if women. And so, okay, they're working at home. Obviously, they're working. They're not. They're doing unpaid work at home. But it's a great tragedy that the country is wasting that much human potential,
Yeah.
and nobody's doing anything about it.
Lord Desai, I just wanted to ask you, there's so much talk currently about this new India that we hear, which is the antithesis of everything that was Nehruvian, which is supposed to be meritocratic, which is anti-elitist, which is all about hard work and not Harvard, as they call it. But there doesn't seem to be any intellectual underpinning to it, although there are some attempts recently by young theorists. What is your conception of this new India? Does it exist?
I mean, one thing is that Nehru was so dominant
Hmm.
in my teenage years, an incredible time. And his attitude were very, very much English. And I mean, his whole thing about Fabian society. I mean, he had to discover India because he didn't know anything about it. And he had to be in jail to discover India. Because, in a sense, his whole background and so on is like that. And he really found it very hard to deal with religious people or Hindu religious people. And so he created this culture in which basically to be quoted in the Guardian or the New Statesman was the thing. We valued ourselves by how the British or Americans thought of us. And we had to, in history, we had to find good kings, and only two turned up, Ashoka and Akbar. Now, what is common among them? Neither is a Hindu. One is a Buddhist and one is a Muslim. So, that kind of, I remember being very, very kind of irritated by this. I mean, I was not a BJP wala, but I think, come on, you can't have this thing about glorifying Ashoka, glorifying Akbar, because you don't want to glorify Chandragupta or somebody else. What's wrong with it? So there was this, not secularism, but anti-Hindu secularism. But it is true. Now, that created a alienation from the ordinary people. And they were happy to vote, but basically Congress did not deliver growth, and at least not for the first 40 years. They were babus and they had jobs and all that, but it was for the few, not for the many. So what were people going to do? I mean, people are hungry not just for economic, they're hungry for politics, for an identity, for what do I believe in? And I think that is where BJP very patiently dug away. Yeah, they're anti-Muslim, and I think that is a pity. But that is, you see, again, as I was saying before, because India is a civilization and not a nation, we have to have a national narrative. Congress didn't actually have it. Secularism is not a national narrative. BJP has the Hindu narrative, which I still think is not good enough, because India is more than a Hindu civilization, and the whole story is entirely North Indian. The entire Hindu nationalist myth of Muslim domination is entirely North Indian. Northeast is out of it. All of South is out of it. And it is a Doab. It's a Doab region, and that's all it is about. Delhi Sultanate. So these are partial stories. But right now, the people were hungry for identity, and BJP gave them an identity. Now, where is the modern India? When the modern India is sort of doesn't really mind about being it. They want to be technologically advanced. I mean, I met lots of people because of my confused image. A lot of BJP people come to me as well for guidance, and I give them. I'm a teacher, and I'll be teacher all my life. So if they show me their books, I advise them on that. They are sort of impatient to get on, grow the technological capacity. And there I think they find that the Indian government structure is absolutely third rate. One of the greatest obstacles created to growth in India is the bureaucracy. And even Modi ji has been unable to, he's trying lateral outside recruitment and so on. But the IAS is a huge behemoth, very, very hard to defeat. Until we do that, until we get away from the state ownership stuff, none of that is necessary. None of this nationalization is necessary at all.
No, I said that in a column earlier this year, you predicted that Mr. Modi would retire at the age of 75 because that was the norm. And you, of course, now just mentioned that the IAS is the biggest stumbling block to, all of the things that he hopes to achieve, and you call the government third rate. Now, do you see this paradigm shifting, especially given the way they've dealt with the pandemic and all of the things they've done?
You see, I did say Modi will retire at 75, and I still believe that. And it's pity because he's the only leader India has got. Sad to say, but there it is. And he will not accomplish what he set out to achieve. Okay, I hope I'm wrong. Modi 1.0 was very, very good. But I think now in Modi 2.0, the harder ideologues of BJP are saying, ye vikas jane do, sanskritik kaam karo. The culture war is more important, the Hindu nationalism is more important. And so establish that culture, and 370 was one part of it. The Citizens Amendment Act is another part of it. And it's going to be very troublesome. But I believe I'm wrong. Sorry, I believe I'm wrong, but I think Modi has not focused on the economy anymore. This is Modi 2.0. And we don't have data.
And do you think that's dragging us back as a country right now?
Well, I think that has, again, I hope I'm wrong, but I think our growth has slowed down. Our credit markets have been destroyed. And while the labor reform was a good thing, agricultural reform is also a good thing, very, very much worth doing. The credit market has been destroyed and nobody has fixed the credit market, and the growth is not reviving. Now, so I'm puzzled. I think every day about Indian economic growth. I'm sitting here, I worry about it. And to the extent that I can see it, okay, I can see the solution, but I don't know how anybody is going to implement the solution.
What is the solution, Lord Desai? What is the solution, Lord Desai?
Well, I would first of all actually fix the credit market. I say the credit market because part of India is a developed country. This is a modern Western country in which bank credit is very, very important. And I think unless we fix that, unless we denationalize all the banks, and we have a financial controller, not the Reserve Bank of India, but a proper financial controller of credit. In India, if I lend you money, you'll be perfectly entitled never to repay me because you'll find a variety of law courts to run. So why would I lend you money? So lending is very expensive, borrowing is very expensive. And profitability is not that much. So we have got into this doldrums. And I miss Arun Jaitley. Arun Jaitley, I could explain to this in 2 minutes, and he would sort of pick it up. And then I think we have to really get a pro-business culture, really pro-business culture, because the hostility to business even under BJP, is very, very good. It's very much a civil service dominated culture in which only the government can do anything right. And most of the time, the Indian government is utterly useless. What can I say? I come from a family of government employees. Had I not gone abroad, I would have been IAS.
Yeah.
I could have ruled over you.
It's been a tumultuous week for you. After 49 long years, you've called it quits from your party, and your wife even wrote in a recent column that with Rebellious Lord just on the verge of coming out or having just come out, it would have been interesting, if this decision had come a little earlier so that you could have dedicated an entire chapter of your book to it, perhaps. Is that something of a mischance for you?
Basically, it's a very sad thing. And again, I hope, I not hope, maybe I'm wrong, but Labour Party, when it is in office, it's never happy with itself. The people are always saying, oh, we're not doing enough. And then we're in opposition, we certainly go to the left. We went there after 1979. I lived through that period when we got rid of the hard left. They infiltrate the party and they want to move the party much more to the Leninist left. And we fight them because we are a middle of the road, Democratic Socialist Party. And after we lost in 2010, in 2015, we had Jeremy Corbyn elected, who's known to be on the extreme left in the party. And a lot of Leninist people came in, Trotskyist people came in, and the party went. Now, that's a matter of tactic. We can discuss tactic, hard left, soft left. But the hard left brought an anti-Semitic culture, which is a completely new thing for the British hard left. Different generation, very much influenced by social media, conspiracy theories, and all this sort of. But this current virulent anti-Semitism was there, and the MPs who are Jewish got abused and controlled, especially women were insulted and so on. And I was very uncomfortable with that. But I kind of thought, somebody we will solve it. After our defeat, this report came out by the Equality and Human Rights Commission, which said that we had a culture which tolerated anti-Semitism. And although there were ways of dismissing or throwing people out, that mechanism did not work. It was very slow. It was very forgiving. And then when the new leader didn't really crack a whip and we suspended and re-admitted Jeremy Corbyn within 20 days, I thought, this is it. I can't really take this anymore because I feel ashamed that I'm in a party which is anti-Semitic. And it's not going to be fixed anytime soon. So, everybody, when I said this to my fellow labor peers, they said, no, stay in there, fight the good fight. And I thought, no, I can just see it coming. This is getting nowhere. We're going to get trapped in these end committees and commissions like that. And people will know that. People say, but it's not really very large, it's very small. It is there. It is pointed out to us by an independent agency that we are a racist party. Look, I can't be there. Calling it anti-Semitic is not good enough. It is racism. And therefore, I decided that I cannot be in a racist party. After 49 years in the Labour Party, I have left it.
Yeah. Lord Desai, just the
So
last...
you see, I can get into trouble in any country.
Well done, you. You came to Britain in 1965. Britain was still coming to terms with its multiculturalism. You fought the good fight. You had such a big role to play in the students' rebellion. How do you see Britain now? Do you see it as a country that is not quite sure where it is? It's a multicultural society, but its relationship with Europe is so conflicted. How do you see it now?
Well, in most of the time, except this anti-Semitism I mentioned, it's a remarkably tolerant country. And the fact that 3 cabinet positions are held by Indian origin Britishers, or they were born in Britain, but their parents brought them here. And, top jobs, Chancellor of the Exchequer,
Chancellor of
Home
Exchequer,
Minister,
Home Minister.
I mean, and with the rumor that he's going to become Prime Minister.
Yes.
Now, I always say to Indians, when do you think a Nigerian will become Prime Minister of India? Right?
Right.
So, this is because, yes, of course, there is inequality. Of course, there is some deprivation. And there is no doubt that. But there are deprived white people as well as deprived black people. I mean, but the thing is that there is achievement. And there is, I've been in a party which has fought for this. A part of my 49 years was fighting for this. And even the Conservative Party has overcome its old prejudices. John Major was very good on that respect. He had grown up in Brixton and he was absolutely the completely non-racist prime minister, and his whole culture changed. So I think, from that matter, this is a very tolerant country. I'm very happy in it. It is a former empire, so it is no longer as glorious as it used to be, and it hasn't quite realized that it is not a great power anymore. And so it is adjusting to be a medium level power. And that's the Brexit was all sort of a little tantrum. And you're going to suffer from it. But we'll see.
And I just wanted to end with this last image that I have of Donald Harris and Shamla, and you knowing them at Berkeley,
Yes, indeed,
and
yes.
seeing a little Kamala grow up. And of course, she's
Yes.
now the vice president designate. Must be quite something.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very kind of strange because I remember when she became senator, I tried to contact her. I didn't get any reply, and I said, fair enough. What is it? I had seen her when she was 1 year old, and I know her parents, but of course with them I lost contact, and of course Shamla is no longer there. But one thing I must say about Shamla, more than about Kamala. Shamla, despite being a Tambram, wrote her daughter to believe that she was a Black American, which is very difficult for Indians to do. Indians don't have that consciousness. Our consciousness is elite consciousness. I always wanted to integrate with the majority society in America. I did do something for the civil rights movement, very small amount, but my consciousness was I was on the other side.
Right, of
But
course.
Shamla was amazing because she brought up her daughters to think, no, we are Black Americans and we have to grow up like Black Americans and fight.
Right.
That is a great tribute to Shamla Harris.
Great. Thank you so much, Lord Desai.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me. And hope my book sells.
Yes, it will, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord Desai. It's been a pleasure.